Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Okay, so I'm gonna clear my head real quick before I kick into these readings, all right, and get everything all decent and in order for you guys. The past few days have been really, really well. Ultimately, from what I observed, is pay attention to what would have gone on with that transition period, where you're not necessarily an a teenager but you're not necessarily considered a kid. This is going to be about that between the ages of 11 or 10 and 12. The ages 10, 12. So that's going to be what that portion is about. The other part of it that I noticed, right, that will come into place that's critical in those age gaps, right, or in that little gap in between time from, not really being a big kid to, really being considered, being able to get a little bit more freedom extended to you, right? So you want to pay attention to that and what it was that you learned in the foundation, right? Typically around the age of 7, developmentally, right? Around the age of 7, you know exactly how you feel about a lot of stuff, but you don't really fully yeah, within it until you're about 9 years old. And then that's what determines how you handle a lot of stuff in those 7 and 9 and 10 year cycles. Okay? Because you would have went through it when you would have been a littler person. That was that. The other thing is, right? Y'all, please make sure y'all get y'all some electrolytes. Lord have mercy. Y'all know how the sun is, and you know what they say when you get too hot, you start flipping out and stuff. Yeah, blood sugar start raising and high blood pressure start raising. Everything just starts going all out of whack. So make sure you guys are getting some water and getting some electrolytes. I did notice a lot of different stuff. I'm real as far as like the essence is concerned. What constitutes as Mars essence for you, and in the cardinal signs, right? I know what it was given was that some of the stuff it was had come up from when some cardinal sign readings. There's Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, right? The reactionary aspect. The best way that I could explain that I'm aware of, right, is to determine cardinal, mutable, fixed, right? In the cardinal aspect, typically what happens is it's as a reaction. Sometimes it's going to depend on what the environment would be like. That's how Libra essence really works, as well as Capricorn essence works. And then with Aries and Cancer, though, what has a tendency to happen is more self-focused, okay, and then it extends it out, right? Now the way that relates or translates over to some of the fixed signs, right? With fixed signs you'll get that same ideal set, but it'll be according to that's what they're anchored in. With cardinal signs it's because somebody imposed it on them. So that's the difference with the Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius. The other thing is, right, it would also be reflective of what would have taken place for some people the last, like 12 years ago, is what I'm gathering from it. Others, it's going to be about what it was that would have taken place uh, during that Cancer Capricorn axis. It was coming up so much what it was that was nurtured during that time. One of the things that did kind of come to me is, I was wondering if Bev and Dove were okay. I hadn't seen anything or heard anything from them in a while. I'll be honest, I haven't actually looked either, but I'm kind of used to it just popping up in my feed. So, yeah, I was kind of curious about that. The other thing was, right, um, even with understanding how your own essence and energy works, the mutable madness is, the trial and error type situation. And sure, regardless of what your sun sign is, or even your moon sign. Pay attention to some of the other portions in your chart, because your sun sign and moon sign, they do contribute a lot. However, if you are like either learning to alchemicalize your essence or the things around you, you want to pay attention to your, I want to say it's your Jupiter sign and Uranus sign. Those are the two I want to say you want to pay attention to. Jupiter, because it'll be about what it is and whether or not you have uh, a cardinal, which is Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, a mutable, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, or a fixed sign, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and either one of those planets as to what it is you would bring your attention to. Now, the reason why is so imperative for us to re-examine, and when I say re-examine, I mean look over the lessons it was that were taught and learned or should be learned during that Cancer Capricorn axis. I want to say that was like 7-8 years ago maybe, and it took place in March, and it was a major shift for everything and everybody if you wanted it to be. That's the thing that a lot of people don't really pay attention to. It's on a lot of the essence can like come over you and do all this other stuff if you want it to and if you let it, right? That's where I learned a lot of the different statements about being loyal and solid and trustworthy and having trust and all those other words, these big words that need a lot of explaining sometimes, and forgiveness, all of that to come into place. What it was that took place during that axis on a humanitarian scale and in the spiritual aspect, it was a lot of praise, so to speak, for just those two signs. And realistically, when you're dealing with axes and transits, you're supposed to go to the higher knowing aspect of it, not necessarily just the sign. And the higher knowing of the Cancer Capricorn axis is what it is you gave attention to and put a lot of effort into with your ambitions, your goal setting, and how it is you viewed life realistically as a structure and an examination of what it is you wanted to be more disciplined in and things of that nature. That's the reason why I said review your Jupiter and Uranus aspects, because some things as far as knowledge is concerned is considered forbidden and that like it's just so off limits. Right. And when you do that, whoever is going to be giving you a good idea of what would have been quote unquote off for you, so to speak, in that age bracket of 10 to 12. Okay, so there's that. The other thing is, yeah, because what I'm getting from it is with the whole Cancer Capricorn axis and how what it would be constituted as locked in, right? And how it is that one would view being on the same wavelength. Like it's called one thing one way and something else in a whole nother fashion, right? So depending on what resonates the most to with and for you. I did have a dream, but from what it was I was getting from it, it's more so going to be about the Scorpio Taurus axis that would come into place and how it is empathetic information would process through those two signs. And it was a dream I had, and yeah, and also it would be about how it is the view of mediumship or the perspective of mediumship is interpreted, right? Whether it's going to be about the person being actually deceased underground, and even how some people, yeah, with the Taurus Scorpion axis, the first thing that'll be thought is a person being dead to them, right? So, yeah, because some people may look at it even in that regard. So, paying attention to some of those perspectives as it would pertain to being rebellious, having different sitcoms, propaganda, all those different types of things with the Uranus aspect. And then with the Jupiter aspect, it'll be about what you know to be so and tried and true methods that work for your awareness and your higher knowing, and how it is you implement them on a daily basis, right? Uh, Even in your own like little rituals, right? One of the things it is that I always say, with Mercury retrograde coming up in the middle of June, so I'm thinking this is could give a heads up for some people with some things, um, to help you better navigate that essence before it's even around you, right? Um, with Mercury retrograde, you have to do everything backwards, the opposite way in which you normally would do them. So that's one thing. The other thing is, yeah, I heard everything back. What does that mean? Okay, so with everything backwards, it doesn't always mean that you have to deal with the same people, because you would really focus on yourself more than anything. Part one, part two. You also need to, like for instance, you put your shoes, the right foot on first during Mercury retrograde to shift everything and get a more desired outcome. You put your left shoe on first. Believe it or not, yeah, the Ripleys, believe it or not, and football field size fucking Ouija board. Y'all know it's a football field size Ouija board, a swimming pool that's a Ouija board, a rooftop that's a Ouija board. Y'all, come on now. Y'all letting spirits just come up and everywhere. So if there's a mediumship aspect that will come into place, yeah, that's to be expected. Spirits are always around us and dwelling simultaneously, but in a different dimension. And sometimes we can feel them, sometimes we can't. One movie that really explained it really well was The Others with Nicole Kidman. That's a really good one. Another movie that did really good with it was the movie Get Out. That destiny swapping and stuff like that, yeah, it'll highlight a lot of that stuff. Now I want to say the movie with Nicole Kidman, though, The Others, I'm not sure which axis that's on. You might want to look that up, like which axis slash transit is on. But it definitely would have some Neptune, uh, and like it gives a Neptune in Scorpio. Neptune and Scorpio feel to it, right? So there's that. The other thing was within paying attention to who you are, and I do recall saying you keep what you kill, right? And the hunting aspect, and those of us, yeah, who do like to hunt, you know what it's like, you know. So if you want to keep your ego, yeah, you examine your ego for yourself and see where it is. Speed up that process. Yeah, some people would need to speed up the process. Some people, earth signs, I wouldn't necessarily say it would have to be about the sign in particular. It's not about the sign, it's about the focus. It's not about the sign, it's about the focus. That's why it's linking back to that Cancer Capricorn axis. Because if you focus it on just one thing, then you're limiting every other space it is that it could apply in. Okay, so there's that. I don't think I really have anything else I want to say or that I need to talk about right now before I go into these readings. Other than I hope everybody enjoyed Memorial Day, right? And made their tributes and things of that nature to the passed over loved ones. In case you all missed it, right? One of the things that is that happened is right before Memorial Day, we had that midway point, right? And the Sabbats or Sabbats, I think that's how it's pronounced. But we had that midway point that allowed for us to be in that veiled essence that we get, that we're accustomed to recognizing, that takes place in October. It took place in April, right? So there's that portion. Yeah, that's where the whole some of the lessons from how it is it was interpreted, I want to say about maybe 4 years ago, with the Libra Aries axis is one of them, the onset of that, and then the Taurus Scorpio axis, what took place between those 4 years, right? You gotta examine that aspect of it, right? What did you study? What did you pay attention to? Because the seed drop, yeah, it was like the seed was dropped for, in a lot of different respects, seeds for destruction were dropped in that Cancer Capricorn axis because, yeah, everybody wanted to focus on is just those two signs, and it's like, yeah, because it made it seem like, oh, every Cancer is a divine feminine, every Capricorn is a divine feminine, and you know what I'm saying, or divine masculine, and it was one of those, as yeah, some people still held on to those mindsets as the transit shifted. So pay attention to what's at the foundation of it ultimately, and yeah, even in regards to like what the structure of it is, as well as what it is you would be paying attention to. If you're looking at it as a house, right, it'll be whether or not there's insulation between the floorboards and the basement if you have a raised home, or if you have cement between the earth and the actual living space. That's what that's given. The other part of it is, right, yeah, because something that was coming to me was about Battle of Bunker Hill. I don't know what that's about. Um, um, and yeah, I wanted to say Right to Bear Arms was something else. Yeah, because some of it is going to be a part of like the different imprints. And if you have an idea of who you were in a past life and how it's coming into place now, and how the part it would have played before now versus the part that it'll play at this present moment, according to the part you want it to play later on. I hope I said that right. I think yeah, okay. I think I got that right. Um who else? No, because some of it is what I'm hearing, and it's like getting a report back from those different spaces because I'm trying to draw up the files, so to speak, in my head so that I can recall all of the different thoughts and what they were associated with. Uh, Also pay attention to what constitutes as balance and juggling, and how, if you've ever paid attention to something, right, if you've ever been to the circus, right, that's one of the things I've always wanted to do, y'all. I could talk about that for a second. I've always wanted to go to the circus, right? Haven't had the opportunity to do so. Well, I haven't been to the traditional circus or even a Chinese circus. They are amazing with the ribbons and stuff. Oh my God. I'm not okay, but you feel my enthusiasm in any event. uh with going to the circus, it's about balance, right? You know how you see the guy on the unicycle, and then he's throwing all these little fights. Sometimes it's swords. You know, back in the day it would have been swords. Yeah, because I'm thinking it in the illusion and the mysticism aspect, it's gonna be talking about different practices and rituals that are associated with that. It's given kind of like, yeah, the whole Adam's family situation that would be going on. The other thing is, right, it would be like the you always had a person who specialized in each one of them, but they wouldn't ever really be at the same circuses. Like one would be fire, one would be air, or yeah, like plates spinning and stuff while they on the unicycle, and another one would be knives and fire, the little fire thingies. Yeah, and in short, the theatrics that come into place, or the supposed theatrics that come into place when one is intended to be off kilter, off balance, off center, but if they've been trained in it. The other no, because it's given the Barnum and Bailey movie. I think that's what it's about. I think that's what some of it's about. Yeah, and how take the show on the road. One of the things that did come to me, right, is the scene from Mulan, right, where he says curses, curses on you and your whole family. No, no, not curses. He says dishonor, dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow. He was like, and Mulan hurry up and like, no, 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 right? Yeah, because it's not. It wasn't necessarily only about the theatrical aspect of it or the comedic portion of it, but the reality of how one simple thing can change everything and shift time and all that. Um, Even with the thought process, right? What it is that you will focus on, and yeah, and why it would be that you would one would focus on those things, right? Because if it's not important or you're not going to utilize it later on, ain't no point in you really dealing with it. Yeah, and thought, right? Also, something that was coming to me is the difference between a light body, a pain body, and a shadow body, right? Some people's shadow bodies are connected to their pain, right? And that's what would be what would prevent them from being able to acknowledge the light body. Light body being, the highest potential, and your light body would shift and change and grow. I think that's something that I haven't heard stated yet. Um, but yeah, your light body would shift and change and grow as you would evolve even more. Like, say, for instance, um, I use this as an example. A person who would be paralyzed, right? So they're connected in their pain body and their shadow body. So in order to get them more so in alignment, you would have to address the shadows that would be going on, so that it would relieve some of the pain it is that would be had. Because once you discard it, like completely discard it and deal away with it, right? And if you fall back into certain things, just make sure you rearrange it. The other thing would be is that light body, right, would be more so a beacon for distress. It wouldn't come off as a beacon for enlightenment or something like this. So I'm hoping that will help with some of the understandings in regards to that. Now, on the other hand, right, one of the things that did kind of mess with me a little bit, y'all, right? Yeah, it fucked me up, y'all. I'm so serious. I was out and about, and then I saw a police armored truck, and I got triggered like a motherfucker. I was like, I know this. It's like, what the hell? All I could think is, so y'all institute martial law? And I had asked one of the police officers, I was like, what the hell is going on? They got the police in armored trucks now? And the police officer, he looked, and I pointed to it, and him and the older gentleman, and he was like, oh, that's SWAT. I was like, they need to put that on the side of the thing, because it looks like they instituting martial law or something. Ultimately, it would be reflective of what it was for me, what it was that I saw that was going on during Ferguson. For me, that'll be what it was that was clearing out with the SWAT teams. Now, true enough, just because a person isn't on the inside of it doesn't mean that their part wasn't relevant, because the intention was for it to be throughout the whole city and it to not be just that space. Always remember, it could always be worse. Could have always been worse. And that realistically just puts a damper on those of us who had to play the parts it was that we played on an energetic level. Yeah, it really does, because it's one of those, oh my God, it could have been so much worse than what it was. And it was, yeah, it was like a lot of us got that damn awakening at the same time. Hell, I know that I've had like two other people that told me that they had the same experiences that I had when it took place. So, just being mindful of that. Yeah, because that was something that took place right after 2012, right after that shift. Yeah, when it's supposed to be recognized, and you're supposed to have crossed paths with your twin flame and all this other stuff, but nobody was really acknowledging that it would be a twin flame community. Yeah, so everybody realistically, and those, to my knowledge, right, everybody was supposed to be single in those moments. And as far as like the whole marriages, or they 3D single, as far as like the marriages and things of that nature, yeah, with twin flames, that's where the backwards aspect comes into place. Is what I'm gathering from that. Because upon the awakening, yeah, some people may have been married and all this other stuff, but it was also known in 2012, or by 2012, on the historic aspect and as well as the spiritual aspect, uh, that twin flames had already been coming in waves. That's part one. Part two, the mirrored life experiences, it would have been about the community aspect of, yeah, who all would have been a part of different awakenings, what takeaways it is. Yeah, what it really gives y'all is the debriefing, what was left behind, so that you could follow up and pay attention to as time progressed. And even within being a part of the community, or being a part of a community, right? Yeah, the whole diaspora that would be associated with the twin flame community versus the one that would have been associated with, say, for instance, Pan Africanism, versus being Vietnamese, versus being a Republican, versus being a capitalist, versus, right? It's so many different what constitutes as communities. And again, that's the reason why I say pay attention to the Jupiter aspect. Yeah, because for a long time they were pushing the narrative and agenda, right? That the only way a person would have been constituted as a twin flame is because they would have been in entertainment. And it's like, no, that is not what that would have been, because the raising of vibrations is not solely the responsibility of entertainers, especially considering that entertainers weren't allowed to assist their communities. And it needed, yeah, there was a lot of red tape that needed to be lifted. So pushing that narrative was, yeah, it was really detrimental, not only spiritual aspect, but it was such a buzz kill. It was a vibe kill, y'all, for real. Let me go ahead and just call it what it was. It was a vibe kill. Yeah, it made everything so damn isolated and unnecessary. It just really sucked. For lack of better phrasing. But yeah, hopefully this helps you guys out just a little bit. Yeah, I'm okay. I enjoy Memorial Day. But I'm about to go ahead and gear up to do a few more of these readings, knock those out, and hopefully that'll help you guys out. All right. So I'm gonna close this message. I'm gonna go ahead and close this message out. As it just pertains to, me clearing my head and things of that nature, and lock it in. All right. Light and love to y'all, okay? Because see, remember, light work, it ain't light work. It is not light work. It's not light work. And that's why you have to stay light while you work.